What's up, guys, and welcome to episode 7 of This Just In. I can't believe we're at 7 already.
I know, that was really quick. They go by so fast, but we look forward to them every week.
Every week. So we're here to tell you about all the awesome new books and games on the shelf of the Freakopolis Geekery and potentially your local comic shop as well. And as you guys know, as a comic shop, we get new stuff every single week, and we come here on Facebook Live to tell you about all the awesome new stuff that has just arrived.
Ready to get started?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Cool, so we'll start the week off. I think we've done this a few times now with DC Comics.
We always kick it off with DC. It's just a good place to start.
Absolutely. So some of my favorites are here, including Batman Beyond. I've really been enjoying this series, and this is a cool little one-shot that takes a look at the Bat women that are in the Batman Beyond era, including the new Batgirl, Barbara Gordon, who is now the Commissioner, and Terry's friend Max.
Yeah, and I see some similarities between Batman Beyond in this case and what's happening over in Iron Man, where there's a sort of a 15-year-old girl who is being a superhero. So
yeah, definitely. They're both from sort of rough parts of town and stuff. So.
Exactly. Yeah. It's really interesting that the way these things happen sometimes. Iron Man, of course, is a Marvel property. Batman Beyond, a DC property, and yet they both had similar ideas for a character type, and they seem to be employing them in a cool way that's unique to themselves.
Yeah, this was a really enjoyable one-shot. I can't recommend the series enough, and it was cool to take a little break from Terry and see what is happening outside of his part of Gotham. But we also have the second part of the Bloodwork arc in The Flash number 31.
Right, yeah. The Bloodwork seems to be a very interesting villain. In fact, they're hesitant to describe his powers outside of the pages of the book because they're kind of potentially upsetting. So if you're looking for some dark The Flash series stuff, this might be a good issue to grab.
Very cool. And we also have a new Wonder Woman. You know, she's on that bi-weekly schedule now, so we get her a couple times a month. And this time with a new arc titled Children of the Gods. That's, of course, Wonder Woman number 31. And in this issue, we find out that Wonder Woman has a stepbrother, as I understand it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've known that she had a brother. I believe his name is Jason, and he's been around for a while, but they're going to try and kind of track down and detail him a bit more in this arc, I believe. So it'll be pretty interesting. And the interesting thing, I think, also is we're starting to see at least the covers of the Wonder Woman books starting to appear more and more like the Wonder Woman from Wonder Woman the movie. So it could be that they're trying to sort of unify those look and feel, and they really like
Gal Gadot.
Yeah, Gal Gadot's look and style that she brought to Wonder Woman. So they're starting to really play that up in now the rebirth version of Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I can definitely see that in this cover here. So cool. Those are sort of the normal monthlies coming from DC, but we do have some sort of special issues as well that hit the shelves this week, including Batman the Murder Machine. You can hear Ian's full thoughts in The Good, the Bad, and the Freaky.
He had plenty to say about it this time around.
He did, so. Yeah. But it is a bonkers-looking book, man. That cover came in and we said, wow, this Dark Knight is literally a murder machine. He's like a giant tank.
Yeah, and it's important to point out this Batman the Murder Machine book is a metal tie-in. It has a super cool UV cover, so there's sort of an effect in the printing. You can definitely see all of the sort of beams that are being cast by various things have sort of an animated look to them when you the way they catch the light.
It's not quite lenticular, but it is very metallic looking. It's a cool material they use.
It is, and in fact, this book is already sold out at DC. There's no more in the warehouse. It's going back for a second printing. The second printing will not have this UV cover, which is standard for the way DC operates. So they only do the specialized cover in the first printing of the book. And so the ones that are out here and available now are the last ones that will be available. Any future orders will get a more standard printed cover.
Very cool, and we have some of these left, I believe. But let's move on to Suicide Squad, which is the continuation of Teen Titans and Nightwing, dealing with the Batman Who Laughs, maybe the creepiest Dark Knight that has shown up since Dark Knight's Metal began. And they just continue to delve deeper into the heart of Gotham, this sort of ragtag team.
Yeah, of course, led by Harley Quinn, and they're going up against, sort of Gotham is kind of infested by, twisted versions of Poison Ivy and Bane and
The Riddler.
The Riddler and Scarecrow, all of the sort of standard creepy villains that come up in Batman are populating Gotham, and they're in even more twisted ways. And again, tie into Dark Knight's Metal, so it fits in perfectly with Batman the Murder Machine, and all of these things are interrelated, and ultimately they'll accumulate into a final ending to this whole series at some point.
Mm-hmm. Very exciting. It's been just wild so far. The next two books, though, tie in together into the Oz Effect event that's going on right now inside of Action Comics and Detective Comics. Detective Comics up first is the first sort of proto tie-in to this series.
Yeah, and I know that this one, Mr. Oz appears in a prison setting, and it's a total mystery to the lead character who's trying to escape this prison.
Very nice.
Yeah, a really interesting Oz tie-in, and it's hard to talk about Oz without talking about Action Comics and how that's all relating to Superman and in particular these lenticular covers they're doing for Action Comics, which is just really, really incredible stuff.
Yeah, 987 had a great lenticular, but this one is maybe the coolest I've seen all year. It details sort of the destruction of Krypton and those final moments between Jor-El and his son Kal-El, of course Superman. So one side is them right before sending off Superman, the other is the destruction of Krypton, and it was just a very touching cover to a super cool series.
Right, and when we took the photograph here, of course, you're sort of seeing the
aftermath.
The version of them where they're kind of getting blown apart along with Krypton. But it's a very animated cover. If you shift your viewing angle on it, you see them prior to that moment, and it's just super cool. You should stop by and at least check out the cover. If you don't pick up a copy, you should at least see the way these things are. They're amazing.
Yeah, they're very cool. So those are some of the event series issues that came out this week from DC. But we have some more comics in store, starting with the other big two, the other one of the big two, Marvel. Of course, we have the continuation of I Am Groot, where Groot is sort of romping through the galaxy, sort of doing his own thing as Baby Groot. So you can't get much cuter than Baby Groot.
Yeah, and he's on his way home. I mean, he's close to home now at this point. He's got a couple of obstacles. He's still being chased by some alien factors. They're trying to chase him down. He's been making good progress in getting escaped, but he's not quite out of all danger yet. So let's keep our fingers crossed for
Baby Groot there. And Cable continues in Cable number 5. I believe this is the last issue before his Legacy series starts up.
Right, and exactly. And Cable has been, I know he's been hiding out in a prehistoric world, Cable being a time traveler as he is. He's been hiding out in the prehistoric version of the Earth, and somewhere he's being chased by another time traveler depicted also in this cover, and he gets found, let's put it that way. And that other time traveler shows up. He has a contingent with him ready to take Cable down right there within that prehistoric world. So
inevitably, I'm sure there was some trail left that this other time traveler was able to follow.
Yep, and it's going to be the big throwdown right there. Maybe that's the best place for it.
Right, yeah. Least amount of...
least collateral damage.
Collateral damage, yes. Nick Fury wraps up in Nick Fury number 6. This is a really cool miniseries that unfortunately got canceled a little early, but they were able to wrap it up nicely. And this has some of the coolest art out of any books coming out of Marvel at this point in time. Super fun, sort of James Bond-y type Marvel Nick Fury publication with just really amazing paneling and art.
Yeah, and I've really enjoyed the way that they've handled the covers with sort of the monochrome effect of each individual cover, but every month, all 6 issues have been based in a different color. And so collectively, as a little library of books, they just look really cool. They're very cohesive and yet distinct.
They're almost like a set of movie posters or something.
It's true, yeah.
They've got this very pop art sort of style going on. And yeah, sad to see it go, but glad that it had a really good run. And we also see Infamous Iron Man number 12 here. This is the last issue of Infamous Iron Man before he joins the Legacy series Invincible Iron Man. But a super fun issue that teams up Doctor Doom as the new Iron Man and Dr. Stephen Strange against one of Marvel's greatest villains, Mephisto.
Yeah, and Mephisto has been driving Doctor Doom a bit crazy, basically disguising himself as a alternate reality version of Reed Richards from the Fantastic Four. But I guess it's time for him to sort of discard that and combat Doctor Doom directly. But he was not expecting Doctor Strange's participation, particularly on Doctor Doom's side.
Yeah, when Mephisto doesn't account for Doctor Strange, things tend to end up pretty poorly for Mephisto. Doctor Strange is a natural at taking down Mephisto. So
yeah, but I believe Mephisto still believes he can do it. The angle that this story is told from is really interesting. Mephisto himself narrates good portions of this book, and he's got a cool point of view. It's a lot of fun to read. It makes for a really cool issue.
Yeah, he sort of speaks to the audience, which is really interesting. But yeah, we can continue to see Victor Von Doom as Iron Man ongoing in the Invincible Iron Man Legacy. I believe it's number 587 is the beginning of that series, and it's coming out in October. So very excited for that.
It's going to be very cool to see that transition from where this has been. It's kind of all led up. I know Doctor Doom continues to play an important role in that transition and in the ongoing Marvel universe. We're very excited to see that happen.
Definitely, and a solid series. We have others from Marvel this week. We do some big ones.
Yeah.
So let's get the sort of elephant out of the way. Marvel Legacy number 1, which you guys might have seen on the Good, the Bad, and the Freaky episode 49 yesterday. It was Ian's good, so you can hear his thoughts there. But let's talk about that a little bit. Super cool, oversized issue that I feel lays the groundwork for Marvel going forward for maybe the next couple of years, hopefully.
It's a big, thick issue. It has a really, really cool fold-out poster-like cover. It folds out like 3 or 4 times, and then the back is there. So it's a huge sort of landscape image of classic Marvel characters looking awesome. The art in this book is incredible. And it really does sort of set up how Legacy is going to work for the Marvel Universe, how they're returning things back to kind of normal. It's very exciting, I think.
Yeah, it is. I think it's a must-have book if you're a fan of Marvel or interested in getting into Marvel books in general. It gives you nice little vignettes of each of the major characters. We see some returns of some classic characters, which is really exciting. And there's some heavy things hinted at that I think will excite comic fans around the world.
Yeah, and as we discussed, I mean, in The Good, the Bad, and the Freaky this week, we might as well mention Alex Ross's really cool piece of work. His drawings that went up to Instagram and then were removed, but it showed Susan Storm and Reed Richards, who we just mentioned. That's why Mephisto had to give up this Reed Richards look, because apparently it's about time for the actual Reed Richards to return to the Marvel Universe, bring us back the Fantastic Four. That's sort of the harbinger of the Legacy universe really coming to fruition and saying, wow, we have the Fantastic Four back. This really is the Marvel universe that we're used to.
Yeah, very excited for that. Glad to see Alex Ross on the job and doing good work, because that was super exciting. We also have another of the Generation series, this time the Spiders, taking a look at Miles Morales who was previously Ultimate Spider-Man, and now Peter Parker, who is obviously the classic Spider-Man. And this sort of one-shot, Miles Morales goes back in time to one of Peter Parker's hardest days ever, and learns a thing or two from him.
Yeah, and I think these Generations books are really cool. They sort of set the groundwork for characters that evolved in the last few years, like Miles Morales. He came into play as Spider-Man, while we still have Peter Parker as Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
So these Generations books kind of set the stage for them to continue to coexist in this sort of ongoing Marvel universe, in the Legacy universe, and bringing Miles Morales fully into the fold and making him part of the current universe.
Yeah, very exciting. I thought it was a great issue. Just a reminder, if you guys are here in the chat, I'm keeping an eye on it. If you guys have any questions, we'll try and answer as best as we can. But for now, let's move on to Image books. You know we love Image here, and here's a couple great titles coming out of them this week, including Redneck. This is the end to the first arc of Redneck, of course, written by breakout hit writer this year, probably the biggest thing this year coming out of indie comics is Donny Cates, writing this really cool vampire story that takes place in Texas. And this is the last issue of the first arc. There's a trade coming out very soon that looks really solid. I've loved this book since day one.
Yep, I think a lot of people have taken to this book, find it's got that sort of dark edge. I mean, all three Image books that we're showing this week happen to be kind of on the dark side of things. I mean, Spawn. What could be more dark than Spawn?
Yeah, really.
Spawn. He's continuing. We're in a sort of part 3 of an arc with Spawn right now. He's continuing his fight against the Tokyo Underground. His powers and sort of his personal self are evolving in ways that he can't sort of control or predict. So Spawn is undergoing a change, and we're going to have to see what happens in this issue and probably the next couple of issues to see where that's leading.
We also have a new issue of Rock Stars, which takes a look at sort of the occult side of rock stardom.
Yeah, I mean, rock stars tends to play on a lot of the myths surrounding rock stars, a lot of the, sold their soul to the devil sort of thing in order to become rock stars. In this particular arc that's going on right now, this sort of dark femme fatale who's surrounded by demons has sort of captured the interest of the male protagonist of the ongoing series. He's kind of fallen for her a bit, and there's a question of whether or not he's fallen for her legitimately or whether there's demonic influence causing that to happen.
That is the nature of that world that they've created.
Yeah, I mean, these guys, both the male and female protagonists of this series are kind of reporters on rock stars. They delve deeply into this whole sort of mythic region of music making, and they set themselves up to be caught in some difficult and potentially dangerous circumstances.
Very cool. We have some more indie titles this week as well, starting, of course, with Valiant's Exo Man of War. I love this book so much. It's been my pick of the week a number of times, and this is the end to its second arc in this issue here. We finally see Eric of Earth put on the aforementioned Exo suit, and he just kicks ass in this.
He goes on to pretty quickly become sort of Emperor Eric. So,
pretty much, yeah.
That goes to show exactly how powerful this suit and he is when he dons it. His ability to just go in and take over.
Pretty much, he went straight to the top, really. But it has a new artist. The art has always been a really strong point in this book, and I think although the style has changed a bit, it remains really cool and fresh and something you don't see in a lot of other books. So still really enjoying this. Glad to see that things all worked out for him in this issue, but in the forward next few arcs, I think things will get a little rough for Eric.
Exo is one of those books that you feel like there's never any corners cut in that book. I mean,
very true.
The materials, the cover art, the interior art, of course the writer is critically acclaimed across the board. The artists are always top notch. Everything about that book is always of the highest quality. So you can't go wrong with X-O Man of War.
I love that book. We also have a new issue of Boom Studios WWE, taking a look at sort of the stories behind the scenes in the worldwide wrestling world.
Yep, and of course, anytime that there's a championship and a belt on the line, you know that there's always sort of some outside of the ring, backstage, give and take and negotiation and sort of personal battles going on, and this is no exception in this issue.
Absolutely. Let's move on to The Beautiful Death #1. This is a book I had put on my pull list a couple months ago. Didn't know a whole lot about it. Was from a company I hadn't read much books by, Titan Comics. But Matthew Bablett has really put out something super cool in this book. I was really impressed. He does the writing, he does the art, he does everything for this book, and I was super impressed. Titan Comics now has a string of really cool books on their hands.
Yeah, I think we got started with this book when we saw the art style in previews. It showed off at least this cover. And I believe a couple of other images that we've seen.
Some interior.
Some interior stuff. And in Previews Magazine, sometimes you see that stuff and you say, this is just going to be an interesting title.
That's exactly how I felt about it, and I was really impressed. It's about double-sized. It's like 64 pages, I think, which feels really good in the hand. The material's really great, and it's a nice short miniseries. This is part 1 of 4, but it really interested me. It's the story of these 3 young men surviving in a post-apocalyptic world against giant insectoids that have come from outer space and now basically are the ruling the roost on Earth, and these young men are just trying to survive. So it's sort of heartbreaking, sort of solemn, but there is a little bit of hope with these young, really optimistic young men.
Yeah, and I believe the sense is that they are the only 3 survivors. But there may be another, and so they might have an opportunity to hook up with someone else. But it's certainly a very trying circumstance for them to have a decent life in this incredible insect-infested post-apocalyptic world.
Super fun issue. I can't wait for #2. We also have another Cullen Bunn book. We've talked about Cullen Bunn a lot on these shows because he writes so much, but. This has been really enjoyable as well. This is, of course, published with Oni Comics, The Damned. This follows a guy that essentially sold his soul to the devil during a sort of prohibition era. But in this case, the mafia and the mobsters are not quite what you would expect. They're literal demons, and this guy can see that, and he knows when he's looking at somebody if they're not what they say they are. And it's this really cool sort of gangster book with a bit of a horror twist.
Yeah, Oni Press, a really cool sort of small publisher out of Portland, Oregon. They tend to put out some really, really cool books that include well-known writers and artists. Mm-hmm. Just a great little publisher. We really like them.
Yeah, I mean, they put this out. It's great. They put out Mocho last year, was awesome, and they're also the publishers of the Rick and Morty comics, which are the next best thing to the television show, really.
It's funny you mentioned Motro. Motro's art reminds me an awful lot
Very
of
much
The Beautiful
so.
Death.
Right, yeah.
I'm not really sure. I haven't researched whether or not there's any connection at all. But they're definitely, the art style, very, very similar.
Mm-hmm. That sort of pastel color, the light shading, really thin lines. I love the style in both of these books. Have been really good.
Agreed.
Cool. Let's move on to new industry publications. So these are books that come to us that aren't necessarily comics. They're what you look for when you're trying to find the best comics.
Right. They're how we know a lot about what's going on in comics and how we select what we're going to bring into our shop and how every comic shop selects what they're going to bring into their shop.
Right. So you have the main title, Previews, there, which has 2 really cool covers, a back cover and a front cover, and that has over 3,000 books, toys, apparel, gift items throughout it. Everything that is coming out in December is in October's previews this month.
Right, so this is how, if you wanted to have titles reserved, if there's books, for instance, that we don't carry on our shelves, but you want to have them held back for you and brought into the store, and held for you so that you can get them when you come in. This is how you pick out which ones you're looking for.
Absolutely. And Marvel's does their own previews this month featuring the Phoenix Resurrection. Apparently Phoenix is coming back to the main Marvel universe.
Well, it's about time, right?
Yeah, I think so, in Marvel Legacy. And so they put out their own showing all the books that they're putting out, which includes single issues, trade paperbacks, the main Marvel stuff, Star Wars, a great little read to tie into the previews book.
Marvel's previews, by the way, it has a lot of great stuff in it. It's a neat way to catch up on everything that's going on in Marvel. It is a free book, so you can stop by and pick yourself up a copy of Marvel Previews, and then use that in order to determine if there's any Marvel titles you want us to bring in for you or that you want us to reserve for you.
Absolutely.
Image Plus and Previews have a low cost. Image Plus, it can be free if you get a copy of Previews, and if you have a pull list of us with us, you can end up getting Previews for free.
Exactly. Image Plus, on the other hand, is a little different than these other two. It's a really cool magazine that does interviews with creators, gives you nice like couple pages worth of previews for new image books that are coming out, which is really nice because sometimes the solicitations inside previews don't give you the full story, but in Image Plus you really get a sense of what the meat of these books are going to be about and what the art's going to look like. Just a super fun read. I think all of these are a part of my comic reading ritual, really.
That's a great segue, actually, for what we've got next, which is Foom. Foom is a classic Marvel fanzine that's been around for, I don't know, probably 25 years or more. But they kind of put it into retirement. They just brought it back with a new number one, Foom. Foom is just jam-packed full of articles, of interviews with editors, with writers, with artists, with editorials about Marvel old, Marvel new, Marvel legacy. Everything Marvel is terrifically covered in Foom.
Yeah, I was really surprised when this came in. I wasn't familiar with it, but then having flipped through it, I was really impressed at the amount of information that was in there and the really cool articles that were included, including something like this.
This is pretty cool. This is Deadpool's Guide to Deadpool. So Deadpool himself kind of gives you the rundown on what you should read in order to catch up with what Deadpool is all about, how he fits in the universe, and it's his own take on this, of course. But it's a fantastic read, a lot of fun. This book, in fact, because our store carries all of these legacy titles, you can get a copy of Foom absolutely free. You can just stop by, and as long as we've got them, you can pick up a copy of Foom. It's an excellent magazine. You'll enjoy it a lot. Great art in it, great interviews. Can't say enough about it. Marvel is doing some cool things right now.
Definitely. So let's move on to our next slide here. A new young readers book. This is the 4th installment of Secret Coders, which is a really cool graphic novel that aims to be super educational for young readers, doing something we're pretty familiar with.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool in the fact that it follows a number of kids that are sort of computer programmers at their school. It is a comic format book. Let's see if we can see some of that. Yeah, it's a comic format book. Really fun read for kids, but it also gives them some interesting logic challenges and sort of programming style challenges and math challenges, but in such a cool way that they love it. They really, really enjoy it. So our shop tries to make sure that we've got copies of Secret Coders. I think we've got 3 of the 4 books in right now. They continuously move off the shelves. Lots of families like to make sure that their kids have a copy of Secret Coders. Lots of fun. And lots of good learning as well.
Yeah, get those kids started in that STEM field early, with something really fun and, that they feel like it's an enjoyable experience.
Yep,
so
great stuff.
Yeah.
We can't say enough about it. It's just a top quality read, and it's not all that expensive, so it's really just an excellent thing to get your kids involved in.
Yeah, we love having these in the store. Up next, we'll move to some of the more gaming-related things. This first piece here is a new RPG adventure map. Technically says Pathfinder, but could work for any number of role-playing games, really. In this case, it's a haunted house.
Right. Could be used in a fantasy setting. Be used in a modern day setting. It's just an old, dilapidated haunted house, but it's a really nice flip out mat. It's perfect to put your minis on and go through and battle and for the game master to create some sort of a horrendous scenario for you to encounter. It also works really well with virtually any type of marker, whether it be sort of a dry erase, wet erase, or even permanent markers can be used on this and then cleaned off afterwards. So they're really cool mat, very handy. Perfect if you've got a Halloween adventure coming up.
Ooh, yeah, that would be awesome.
Ideal for that. So we wanted to make sure we had something like that in the shop, and they're here now.
Yep, one side shows the first floor, the second, the other side shows the second floor with the studies and bedrooms and things. So actually pretty large little map for you to play on. Very exciting. Love these Pathfinder flip maps.
And just something fun for for the Groot lovers out there. And the people who love Funko Pops. It's a nice combination. This is basically a Funko Pop Groot keychain. Yeah, he does look a little bit like a turnip, though. But I think that's standard for Groot.
Yeah.
He is basically a vegetable.
Right, that is Baby Groot for you. Yeah, he's it's the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 Groot, of course, wearing his, I believe this was his Ravager outfit, so super cute nod to that movie, and yeah, definitely has that Funko cuteness to it.
And we've got a number of those here in the shop. They're newly released to shops this week.
Cool. A new game from WizKids this week came in at the request of a customer, and we had to get another copy because it just seems so cool. Sidereal Confluence, a pretty hefty game for 4 to 9 players, plays in about 2 hours, and it's a sci-fi trading and negotiating game.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a different sort of game than a lot of the games that we see. Now, this is for, what'd you say, 4 to 9 players,
That's right.
Yeah, so up to 9 players simultaneously, and it seems like it could become a very raucous event because the trading and negotiation in this game, which is sort of a Catan-like sort of feel, if you've played Catan.
It's a heavy mechanic there.
Yeah, the trading is super important to this, but the trading and negotiation takes place simultaneously. So basically, all 9 players would be sort of interacting and doing their trades.
Yeah.
It definitely seems like it could become a pretty wild time at the table.
Right, so as Dad and I are trying to, make our best trade that we can, on the other side of the table, Ian and Mom are trying to do the same thing at the same time. So I imagine it would get pretty wild and raucous, yeah.
Yeah, so and the experience is you basically do your trading and your negotiation and your sort of investment in research and inventions and try to create a culture on some distant planet that is capable of working within the sort of galactic economy. It's definitely a really cool sci-fi game, and it comes with a high recommendation from some of our sort of more major tabletop game players.
Definitely.
So we definitely wanted to bring this in. We wanted to have it in our shop, and we can't wait to hear how their first matches turn out.
Playthrough is, yeah, it's got pretty rave reviews online, so very excited to see that in the shop and hopefully getting some play in the local community. And we also have a restock of some of our very favorite things, HeroClix.
Yeah, I mean, HeroClix, these particular clicks are not newly released this week. It's that we kind of surveyed our community and asked them which of the clicks that we've had in recently they would like to see us restock and have available again. And these were the ones that were selected immediately.
So we have some really great sets here. Superior Foes of Spider-Man has been a staple since we opened. One of the best sets I think we've seen in the past few years.
Yeah, Superior Foes. I mean, and that's been covering all the different variations of Spider-Man, all the different variations of Venom and Carnage.
Sinister Six.
Yeah, all of the various snake type guys.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's been an incredible series, very exciting for people to pop these boosters open. we definitely do not mind bringing more of those in.
We also have a restock of Avengers Defenders War, really cool set that came out earlier this year that has, I think, all of the Avengers pretty much and all of the Defenders as well.
Right, and including, Defenders from the Netflix series. So they made certain to include Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, and Daredevil, all as sort of Netflix versions. They look like the Netflix characters, and they made sure to include those in these. So it definitely gives a nod to sort of the old Avengers Defenders, and then right on into the very latest Avengers Defenders.
And our last set of Booster Brick restock this week is Marvel's What If, which we've already seen today. Some really awesome pulls from, just wild, crazy characters, and that's the nature of Marvel What If.
Yeah, and this set was created for the 15th anniversary of HeroClix, and these What If characters are incredible. So many of them are so powerful and have such surprising features. That HeroClix players love to get their hands on these things. Some of the coolest ones we've seen are probably
Cosmic Spider-Man.
What if Punisher was the Sorcerer Supreme? is definitely one of the coolest ones. There's various Hulks. There's various Venom type characters. There's Venomized versions of a whole array of normally Marvel superheroes. So just a really, really cool set.
Yeah, definitely. But we also have some new Gravity feeds. One is a restock, and that is Undead. We've sold a lot of these recently, and it's more than just, as the name says, Undead. It's really basically horror themed.
It is. I find Undead is a little bit limiting, considering that you've got things like Dr. Frankenstein and Dr. Jekyll.
Werewolf, a demon sort of character.
Right.
So,
but then you do have vampires, you have zombies, you have undead Lincoln,
and some ghosts.
Right.
Yeah, super fun set though, and it's interesting to see a set that's not necessarily a licensed set, that's sort of just more free form, really recognizable classic characters.
And then finally, we have Yu-Gi-Oh! Series 3. We have a number of people who come into the shop who are existing Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game players that we feel would really, really enjoy the Yu-Gi-Oh! Version of HeroClix. Mm-hmm. So this is the Series 3 set, sold as singles. There is 20 different Yu-Gi-Oh! Characters and creatures in here. Including in this set is Exodia, so a super popular character for Yu-Gi-Oh! Players.
Yep, bunch of classic characters in there, super exciting. I'm just glad to have it here. And that will do it, I believe, for this week's This Just In. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We really love doing this show and letting you guys know our thoughts on all the new stuff in store. If you could, or you feel like it, like, share, subscribe, comment. It does so much to help us keep, getting new cool things into the shop, and shows your friends you're in the know. So thank you so much for watching. Until next week.
See you next week, guys.
Take care.